Hey, and welcome to my channel where I make my own latex clothing from start to finish. This means I also make my own patterns, and today's video is something that I've been putting off for a long time because the pattern design for this project is something that requires precision and some level of visual spatial perception. The project I'm talking about is, of course, a full face hood. I really wanted to start the pattern drafting on paper, using only measurements of my head and face, but after playing with the numbers in a 2D space for a day, I realized I was not confident that those patterns would take the correct shape once assembled. Therefore, I actually made my first pattern draft using the masking tape method I used for the bunny hood in one of my videos, and made this first version of the hood just to see that the pieces at least form a correct shape. Apart from the hood being too loose, which I knew to expect, the pattern seemed to create a smooth and round shape without much wrinkling. I had spent some time examining different hood designs, and I noticed that the hood will look a lot smoother the more pattern pieces were used to accommodate the roundness of the head. You could make a hood from just two identical side profile patterns, but the center seam, especially at the top of the head, could buckle. For that reason, I decided to go with this very commonly seen heart-shaped face design, where the face consists of two pattern pieces, but the head itself is divided into three pieces. To really emphasize the roundness of the head, I also patterned the part that attaches to the zipper to pull in the neck a little bit at the back. All of the pattern pieces had to be taken in to make the hood fit snugly. For some pieces, I removed 0.5 cm from all edges, but with some of the patterns, I removed less from areas that already didn't have much seam allowance to stick to other pieces, like the nose and the widow's peak. So for those parts, it meant that I had to remove just a bit more from the other edges of that same piece. Once I was happy with the modifications, I traced the patterns on 0.4mm latex and cut the pieces out with a rotary cutter. I'm using 0.4mm because that is the thinnest latex I currently have, but 0.25mm thickness seems to be more common when it comes to hoods. The reason for that is that thinner latex feels more comfortable as it stretches more, and it also doesn't squish the nose and the chin as much. However, 0.4mm seems to work for this as well. Next, I'm gluing on the trim around the eye holes. The way I do it is I glue a patch that is slightly bigger than the actual eye hole, and once it's attached, I cut the holes. This way you get an even edge. For the corners of the eyes, I used a leather puncher to get a slightly rounded corner, which I'm hoping minimizes the chances of ripping. Once the eye holes were cut out, I used the same leather puncher to cut out the nostrils. I've seen some hoods with a small round patch to reinforce the nostrils, but I've also seen them without the reinforcement. I didn't feel the need to add them, but you can add them before cutting out the nostrils if you want to. I start the hood assembly from the face. Here I'm applying glue on the chin and the nose area. However, while I'm gluing it, I realized that I'm not supposed to attach the chin yet, as there are other pieces that need to be attached to the pieces before I can do that. I then start to struggle with the center seam of the face. I've sped up and cut this video a lot because this part took me almost an hour. The nose is so difficult to glue together, and it's only because I made it so small. If your nose is bigger, this part will be much easier. However, I was so frustrated after this that once I had managed to attach the pieces together, I had to walk away from this for a whole day. I know if I get frustrated with the project, it will just lead to more mistakes, so I returned to it the next day and started attaching the side pieces. Here it's important to flip around the work periodically so that the pieces don't stretch unevenly. Here I realized that I had not removed the needed measurements from the ends of the side pieces, so that's why they didn't quite align with the face. Here I'm attaching the neck pieces and then drawing a line from the chin to connect everything and giving me a guideline for where to cut off the excess. I did make the chin area less curvy since it was quite challenging to glue together. Then I attached a trim around the mouth. However, later when I tried on the hood, I thought that the mouth was too small, so I ended up removing the trim and making the hole wider. I also didn't like how this one had a seam on the trim, so for the wider mouth I had cut an intact piece that fit around it perfectly. Here I'm attaching the zipper to the last piece before attaching it to the rest of the hood. If you would like to know more about how to rubberize a zipper before you can glue it to latex, check out the video in the upper corner. As mentioned earlier, I had curved the seams where the zipper will be attached to so that I can pull in some of the latex at the nape area. Here you can reinforce the zipper on the back side, how I usually do it, or you can even add a protective flap so that your hair doesn't get between the teeth. I've had more trouble with the flaps themselves than getting my hair caught, so I prefer mine without. Next, I'm attaching the piece to the rest of the hood. Here it's important to align the pieces properly, as this widow's peak should be centered. Also, if you don't flip your work while gluing these seams, the other piece is guaranteed to be longer, especially if it's a skinnier and stretchier piece to begin with. Now the hood itself is ready. You can just leave it to cure for a couple of days if you don't want to attach any accessories like hair tubes or ears to it. I let mine cure for a day so I could see it on and see that it fits, and also that I can mark where I want to attach my hair tubes. For those tubes, I cut out round pieces of latex. The diameter of these was 6 centimeters, and the diameter of the tubes I'm making is going to be 4 centimeters, so these round pieces will be attached at the bottom of the tubes, and there will be a 1 centimeter wide lip that I can then use to attach to the inside of the hood. I'm making the tubes from 1 millimeter thick latex, and I'm using a thin strip of 0.4 millimeter latex to reinforce the seams, as I know from experience that this thicker latex does not like to stay glued. I'm then attaching the round pieces at the bottom of the tubes. The pieces were scored so that they should spread evenly inside the tube. I will be using black and green synthetic hair for this hood as requested by all of you Instagram followers who answered the poll in my story. It was quite difficult to find it in this exact color and especially with a nice ombre transition, so I'm going to put the link in my description in case you're looking for something like this as well. I wanted to make these pigtails removable so I could enjoy other hair colors too, so I attached them using these snap buttons that I used in my Sailor Venus cosplay video. What I should have done here too is melt the hair or at least tie it around itself so that it doesn't shed when brushed. I had some rubberized snap buttons left from that Sailor Venus project, so I glued them on these round pieces and then I attached those pieces to the bottoms of the tubes. Next, I measured where I wanted the tubes to be attached to. Then I cut out the holes and slid the tubes in from the inside and glued them to the hood. I also added some trim off camera to the base of the tubes just to secure them down better. And here's the final result. I really like it and it turned out so much better than I anticipated. Everything fits very snugly and smoothly and there's no buckling or wrinkling anywhere. It's also surprisingly comfortable to wear. I have hoods that are made of thinner latex, which in theory should feel better, but they hurt my nose and my chin. This hood did not pinch a single spot on my face. I also love the hair color with this hood. However, this hair fiber is not really meant to be kept free flowing like this, as it is designed for braids specifically, so if you would like to keep the hair open like this, I suggest looking into more high-end synthetic fibers. The only thing I would improve on are how the hair is attached and the tubes themselves. When it comes to the snap buttons, they work very well and keep the hair in place, but they are a bit difficult to snap in place. For the hair tubes, I would probably cover some PVC tubing with latex instead of making the tubes out of just thick latex. That way the tubes will retain their shape and can also withstand the weight of the ponytails better. That's all for this video. If you'd like to see more, check out my channel and subscribe. Also, check out my Etsy shop for some ready-to-ship latex clothing. The link is in the description. Thank you so much for watching and happy crafting!